But I've just been ruminating because Esther, I feel like, is one of the most beloved storytelling books from the Old Testament. It is this really cool story about how, you know, the Jews are able to save themselves from this terrible plot of extinction. How this woman is blessed by God to be able to defy these certain cultural rules. She can go before the king and gain his favor and save her people. For such a time as this, that's like the phrase. And I've just grown up knowing the story of Esther, and it's taught a lot. But this is the first time that I've read it in a really long time, and I have to say that I have these weird feelings about it. And as a disclaimer, remember, this is my personal devotion time where I am working out my own thinking and thoughts about Scripture. I am not claiming to be spouting any theology that people need to agree with. I would certainly love your comments if you have thoughts in response to this, but I guess since the last time I've read it, I've become maybe much more of a feminist, and so there were some cultural things that really stood out to me that I kind of prickled at. I think the first thing that I noticed was the impetus for starting this Esther story is that the current king has a wife who defies him. And the fear is that the women will look at their husbands with contempt. Oh, well, the queen didn't listen to her husband, the king, so I don't have to listen to my husband. And so that if the decree is not made to replace her as queen, this will just be rampant throughout the kingdom, this disobedience and contempt. So we need to make this proclamation so that all women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike, and that every man will be able to be master of his own household. Okay, the idea of marriage, Christian marriage, the man is the head of the household. But the New Testament is really like, that the head of the household is to love his wife like Christ loved the church, which is basically willing to die for her. So for me, I think one of the challenges of reading the Old Testament this year for me has been like remembering that these are cultures that are not American. They're not 21st century. They're so ancient. Although so many of these things do like show up now. Okay, calm down. Don't read backwards thinking, they're violating our rights kind of thing. But I think that's so interesting about the Bible is because I do not believe that God is like using the book of Esther to tell us that women have to be silent and in complete submission to whatever it is that their husbands want. Do I think that women should be like belligerent and rude and disrespectful? Like, I'll be honest, one of the worst things that I ever experience is when I'm with a group of women and they speak poorly of their husbands. As a single person, I'm always like, y'all are not selling marriage to me. You are talking about your husband like he is this pathetic child who you have to wrangle. And that is really not appealing, and I actually think is pretty disrespectful. Was that what Vashti was doing? I don't know. So it's weird, right? It's like, what do I do? Thank God for the New Testament that gives us a little bit more perspective and shows us that, a home is not just supposed to be where the man is like ordering everyone around like they're his servants, that there is supposed to be this like genuine love and desire for the goodwill, and an understanding that, both of the parties are human. So that's the kind of the first thing. Like, this whole book is about controlling the descent of the women. Okay, keep reading. Then the next thing that really stood out to me was that the whole book works because Esther is beautiful. If Esther was not strikingly beautiful, this book doesn't function. Right? So if you just like back out and say it in like just like kind of objective terms, you have this like beautiful orphan girl whose guardian hatches a plan to send her to the castle to win the heart of the king / play on his lust / whatever, to become, put into a position of power where she is able to turn around and save her people. Basically, she's a pawn because she's beautiful. Go again. As a woman who is part of this society even today that really benefits attractive people and kind of teaches us to capitalize on our looks, and if you're more beautiful, you can be more successful and have more doors open to you, where sometimes you just want to be like, not have that be the thing that people want from you or allows you to do things. It was like really hard for me to read. Part of me is just like, oh my gosh, this poor woman, like that's all. Obviously, if you keep reading the story, she does fast. Like, she calls her team of people to fasting. She is kind of, actually later, she's a little as manipulative or tricky or strategic, I don't know which word you want to use, as her uncle. That's the second thing. I'm just like, okay, why can women never be more than just how beautiful they are? And it's in the Bible, so people think that it's true. Okay. And then, I think there's just really interesting things that we gloss over. So, in chapter 2, it talks about how she had to go through this whole process of becoming purified and beautified for meeting the king. And then, when the young women went in to the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem in custody of the eunuch who's in charge of the concubines. So basically, the orphan, beautiful woman is sent off to the castle to get all dolled up and primped and pressed and prodded and dressed and whatever, to go in and spend the night with a king. They're having sex. And then, right? Because what else would they be doing all night? Talking? They're just talking, right? No. And then, if he was happy with that, she can come back if he says so. Oh my God. And I'm just thinking about how, none of that is, obviously, why would we tell that to children? But the unseen hand of God is, working this out. So she gets this opportunity. She wins the favor. Part of me feels like you could make a parallel between this story and Daniel. Because in both of these instances, they're, the captive Jewish people who are working in the governments, and they have this opportunity to be seen as important or blessed by the king. So Daniel, also has a food ritual. Of course, in his case, he abstains from the king's meat and does his special diet, which, puts him still to be in favor of the king. Of course, in the book of Daniel, the hand of God is very explicitly talked about, whereas Esther is kind of a similar story, except that we don't really hear God's favor, but also, in my mind, I'm just thinking do we want to talk about that God, made her so beautiful so that the king would want her so much, and that she was pleasing enough in the night they spent together to be causing him to fall in love with her? Or am I just reading too much into it? Maybe they just talked and she was so brilliant that that's why he decided he loved her. I think what's the worst for me, that I have now gotten some advice on some reading material. It is actually a theme that is dealt with, but it really stood out to me in this book, is this idea of trickery. So I'm not going to say that Esther and her uncle tricked the king. They didn't really. Like, she won the beauty contest and beat out all the women. But then we have the whole point of the book of Esther, really, is this guy, Haman, who's trying to kill all the Jews. He doesn't like them. He doesn't like that Mordecai, the uncle of Esther, won't bow to him. So he hatches this whole plan to kill all the Jews. So then Mordecai knows, and he saves the king from this other plan. So basically, it becomes this like political intrigue, and Esther's purpose is to defeat Haman and somehow get the king's attention to listen to her instead of to listen to Haman. They undo the plan. She goes through this whole process of like bringing him in and making him think that he's really important, and for dinner, and then she's like, you are the traitor, and the king kills him. He gets hanged on his own gallows that were supposed to kill the Jews. And then the thing that happens, they get permission, Mordecai and Esther, to write to all the Jews in this land. The king allowed the Jews who were in every city to gather and defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, children and women included, and to plunder their goods. Now the rest of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also gathered to defend their lives and got relief from their enemies and killed 75,000 of those who hated them. So in the end, what this is a revenge story where a guy uses his little adopted niece, sends her into the castle, sends her into the palace. She out-tricks the trickster who wants to kill all the Jews, and then they get permission from the king to just kill anyone who doesn't like the Jews. Note, so is this here for Christians or as a reminder or history of how Purim came to be? Because I would definitely say that as a Jew, this is a really important book, right? Because you have another instance of where someone was trying to wipe out your people and you were saved. But like, what in the world does a New Testament Christian do with this? I guess all my life I've been taught that, when you're given the opportunity to do something for the people of God, you should do it. Like, for such a time as this, that's like the hard thing. But like, when you really look at the details, for me, I'm just thinking, what am I supposed to learn from the book of Esther? That it's okay for people to use women for their looks? That it's okay to manipulate people politically for your benefit? That once you get in power politically, that it's okay to destroy all of your enemies, including women and children? So, if you have read the book of Esther, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments and tell me what to do. Okay. Thanks for suffering through today, guys.